Today we talk about stuck slides and how you can remove them from inside of your Honda CB550 carburetors. Hello everyone and welcome back to Vintage Speedworks. My name is Marco. Today we're talking about how to go about removing stuck slides from inside of your Honda CB550 or 500 carburetors. Now this is a topic that I've covered before in other videos, specifically the one where we talk about rebuilding CB550 carburetors. Now I wanted to shoot this video because there's some people out there that are simply looking to find out how to remove the slides from the carburetors. They don't need to know how to maybe repair the whole carburetors. They're just trying to see if they can maybe get their bike up and running because they have an issue with their slides, and that's fine. So I wanted to make a video that talks just about that and how you can go about removing these slides from inside of the carbs. Now, why do they get like that? Well, there's a main reason why these slides get stuck inside of the bores of the CB550 carbs or 500 carbs. So the main reason for that is old gas. Now, bad gas or old gas tends to create a film around the slide here. And what happens is there's only a small gap in between the slide and the bore. And so what happens if old gas gets in there, it starts to create a gunk inside of the bore, or in between the wall of the bore and the slide here. And what happens is once it creates enough gunk in there, it freezes together. So basically what's happening is that it's holding itself in the bore. And to remove that is very difficult. I've tried many ways to remove these by other methods, and really there's none that I've had better luck than the one I'm about to show you. Now, there are other methods that I've seen people use. Now, the most common, and I'm sure a lot of you out there know, I'm just going to put this into the bore to show you. As you can see, the slide is in there, moving up and down. But if it was stuck, it might be stuck in that position right there. The most common method that a lot of people tend to use is the flathead screwdriver method. Now, I highly suggest that you don't use this method. People have been successful with it. Some people have, other people have failed miserably, but I wouldn't suggest that you use this method. Now, this method simply involves you putting a flathead screwdriver in between the gap that you see where the slide is and simply prying up. Now, you don't want to do that for a couple of reasons. Now, the main reason is if you bend that slide or bend this metal piece up, then when you're trying to pry it up, you're gouging the bore of this carburetor. And that could give you problems with your throttle later on, where it might not seat correctly, or there might be scratching going on in your bore and your actual slide. And therefore it can cause premature wear, you can have air leaks, and you really don't want to go that route. I know some people have had luck where it starts moving without too much pressure and then it comes out, but I highly suggest that you don't do that. So if I were you, just maybe not try that method. So the method that I want to show you is a very simple method. It might cost you a few bucks, but I think it's worth the investment here, and I'm about to show you. However, before I do that, I'm going to show you another method that I thought could work, but if you're thinking about trying that method, maybe you should reconsider. Now, another method that I was thinking could work, and I'm telling you this by experience because it's happened to me a couple of times and I've tried different methods and I've failed miserably, but I've learned the hard way, but hopefully you won't have to do that. Now, there's this mechanism here that goes on your slide, and your slide that goes in here, basically it looks like this. This mechanism goes in there, and it has three holes. One in the middle holds the slide, or the needle. It kind of goes in the middle, and then the two other holes are for your screws that go into your slide. So the mechanism for the slide should look like this. Now, you might be tempted when you see that you have a stuck slide. So for example, let's put back the slide in the bore. You might be tempted to see this mechanism and want to maybe grab up some pliers or a piece of rope or something and simply pull up. Now you don't want to do that, and the reason for that is because this mechanism is made from aluminum. Now it has some tiny pieces in here that you can very easily break as you're trying to pull up. So I wouldn't suggest that you use that method either. So if you're thinking about maybe doing that, reconsider. This is very soft aluminum and you can definitely damage this. So try not to do that. So let me show you the easiest method that I feel will, save you some headaches. It's a little trickier, but once you have this tool, I feel that your life repairing your motorcycle will be a lot easier moving forward. So first thing you want to do, I went ahead and went over to my local Harbor Freight and I purchased a 2-pound slide hammer. This is a slide hammer and a puller set. Now this set comes with pretty much everything that you're going to need for this removal. It comes with a slide hammer and it has a bunch of tools here that you can use to remove them. But there is one in particular that I use, and it's the pointy one that comes in the set. Now this one originally came with a point, and this tool, or this attachment to the tool, basically what it does is it has a point at the end. So it's meant so that you can hammer this piece into something that you're trying to pull out, and it'll actually lodge itself into that part so that then you can kind of pull and remove that piece or whatever you're trying to remove. So what I did though is, since I've had many CB550 carbs laying around because of some that I've broken over the years and stuff like that, trying to figure out how to fix them, I have a piece like this, or I had a piece like this, which is made out of metal. It has the 2 holes and then the one in the middle for the needle to go kind of seat in there. And so what I did is I took one of those pieces, which you can see here, and I tack welded it to the piece that the kit comes with. Now this piece here, it's very simple. All I had to do is put it in through the middle hole there and then tack around it. Now I have a welder. If you don't have a welder, that's okay. You can always take this to your local muffler shop. Your muffler shop can just tack it for you very, very easily, and it won't charge you that much usually. So if you have a spare one of these slides or slide mechanism that you can kind of pry this piece off of, so you can weld it to this mechanism or this little tool that your tool set comes with, then I would suggest you go this route so you can make one that looks just like this. Now, if you don't have an extra one and you're trying to save every piece from your carburetor, that's okay. All you have to do is remove this piece from inside of your carb. I'll show you how to remove that here in a bit. All you have to do is remove this piece from inside of your carb, and then you can trace this shape here into a piece of metal that you can then cut into the exact same shape, and then drill those 3 holes into that same piece of metal. Then what you can do is that piece of metal that you've made that has the 2 holes in the exact same location with a hole in the middle, you can then weld that to this piece that your kit comes with. Now there's other pieces there that you might be able to use in case you don't have this one or you want to use another one. You can do that too, as long as you're able to weld it to a piece of metal. Now this piece right here, this piece right here is the one that goes inside of your carb. It would usually kind of look like this. So let me place it in there. So you would see a piece that kind of looks like that. Obviously there's a mechanism that looks like this. It goes on the side here, and then that attaches to this mechanism. And so yeah, this is the one that kind of sits in there stuck to the slide, right? So you know, it's gonna be one piece. But there are two little bolts or two little screws like this, which are JIS screws that go inside of that bore and attach the actual slide here. So let me go ahead and put them in there so that I can show you. So these bolts here, and I'm gonna use my JIS screwdrivers. If you don't have a set of JIS screwdrivers, I would highly suggest you get some. For this project, I would highly suggest that you have some because, again, you know, there's a lot of little screws on carburetors, especially on Honda carburetors, that have JIS screws. So a way of knowing if you know you have a JIS screw is if you look at the head of that screw. Usually, if you look here, right where the cross is of that screw, where the little cross section is, there is a little dot there. If you see a little dot on one of those on the head, that means that that's a JIS screw. So normally I'm putting the bolts here or the screws into where they're supposed to go. So normally that's the way that it would come out, or that's the way that it would come on the carburetor, just like this. Now, in order to remove the slide with our way of removing the slide, we have to take out the screws. So all you have to do is kind of wiggle this mechanism out of the way and find your screws. And then you have to put your screwdriver right into the bore where you find those screws. Now, before you do this, what I highly suggest that you do is that you find some penetrating oil. It can be WD-40 or it can be Blaster. I tend to use Blaster for a lot of this stuff, or PB Blaster, and just kind of put it into the bore. Maybe fill up the bore even if you have to. Leave it overnight. Hopefully that kind of soaks overnight and you're able to even remove the slide. If that's the case, then great. But at least so that the penetrating oil can seep into where the bolts are, because you don't want to have a hard time removing these bolts. Especially you do not want to strip these bolts because then, yeah, you're not really going to be able to remove the slides and you're going to have other issues. So you want to make sure that you can remove those two small little bolts from in there, or those screws from in there. So I'm gonna just pretend like the slide is stuck. So I'm gonna put my screwdriver in here and find those screws. Now this mechanism tends to get in the way, so you just have to kind of push it out of the way. And when you find your screw and it's in there, you want to make sure that you press down. Make sure you have a firm, you're pressing down firmly, and then simply undo that and undo your screws. Now these screws are pretty long, which is good for what we're about to do. As you can see, we remove one. Now we push this mechanism off to the other side. And now we remove the other screw. Now these are loose already, but you know, again, you want to make sure that there's penetrating oil in there so you don't have a hard time removing these two little bolts. So once you remove those, you know, kind of considering that the slide is still stuck in there, then you're just going to turn this mechanism a half turn and then it'll come out. So it'll look just like that. Now again, we still have the slide in there stuck and the needle is right in the middle. So the needle for our main jet, we have to remove that one because our little tool here is flat on the end. And we're not able to put it in there so that we can remove the slide because of that needle. Now that needle is not being held by anything because the mechanism that was keeping the needle from coming up is right here. It was this one right here. So the needle can basically just travel up. Now, most of the time the needle will actually be stuck inside of there as well. So it'll be a little hard to take off, but all you have to do is just grab yourself some needle nose pliers and gently grab the needle from the very top tip. You'll see it there, it has a little lock there. And you're gonna squeeze tightly and then you're just gonna pull up. And it should come out like that. Now, obviously you might have a harder time pulling it out because there might be gunk built up here if it's an old carburetor and you know you're trying to rebuild it. Obviously this one is clean, but just, you know, pry up knowing that you're able to, because there's nothing really holding it in place. All right, so now we put that off to the side. So as you can see, if you look in there, now we have our slide in there that's stuck, but we have those two visible holes in there so that we can install our tool now that we made. Now again, you can use an old little piece of metal like that comes on another slide that maybe you didn't use, or if you have an extra one, maybe you can even order one from eBay, but again, you don't need it. All you have to do is get yourself a piece of metal, drill those 2 or 3 holes actually in it, one in the middle for your little tool to kind of slide in all the way, and then the 2 holes that are going to attach to your slide. So once you do that, make sure you ground that out very flat so that we can put it into the board. Now again, it has to be the right size. It doesn't have to have that little, it's like a little guide, I guess you can call it. So you don't need that one. So all you have to do is make your piece of metal round, but you want to make sure that those 2 little holes are perfectly in their place and the same size as these 2 little holes that come in the original mechanism here. So what do you do now? So now all we do is we place the tool inside of the slide. Again, remember, we took out the needle. If you don't take out the needle, then you're not going to be able to get a flat or this piece to sit flat in there. All right, so now that we have that, now we grab our original screws, and it helps to have a magnetic screwdriver like this one, and we're simply gonna guide them to their place. Again, I've covered this. I've actually shown you how to do this in another video. If you wanna check out that video, I'll leave it here at the end so you can see how it's towards the middle of the video. It's a pretty long video, but you'll actually see me removing some slides from an actual stuck carburetor, or yeah, from removing the slides from a carburetor that actually had the slide stuck on it. So you'll be able to see how I went about removing. It was fairly simple. I mean, this way makes quick work out of it. So yeah. So you go ahead and put your 2 screws. Now you don't want to tighten them both all the way. I mean, you want to tighten them up, but you want to make sure that you put both in to where they start to reach the bottom, and then tighten them evenly. Okay, now you do want to tighten these quite a bit, but not so much that you're gonna have a hard time removing them. So just use your best judgment, make sure they're tight on there, and that's what you want there. Now, that is how your tool should look in there. You should have the piece with the screw here, or this threaded end coming up, and it should be attached to the slide itself. And that's all that they should be in there. Then you go to your kit here for the slide hammer, and then there is this adapter here that has threaded ends on both ends here. All you're going to do is you're going to screw it in to this section here where the slide is stuck in there, and that's pretty much it. The next step is simply to grab your slide hammer. Just be careful because the slide kind of goes up and down. You don't want to accidentally let it go and then it slide down and it hit your slide going down, because it can hit the bottom of the bore. Or it could damage the little guide on the side of the bore. So you don't want that. So I would suggest just kind of keep it in this orientation. Trust me, I've done that before, so that's how I know. And then all you have to do is just screw in your slide so you kind of feel it bottom out, just like that. All right, so now that you have it in there, then this is how it should look. You should have your slide hammer right here, the adapter that we adapted to that small piece that we made for the slide. And all you have to do now if your if your slides are stuck inside of your bores, trust me, it's gonna be in there and you're gonna have quite a hard time trying to get these out. But what's cool about this is that you can simply just grab them close to you. Simply, for example, grab your carburetors like this, and then all you have to do is just push out and hit your hammer like that. And just keep hitting it, keep hitting it, keep hitting it slowly. You can start slowly and see how that works. And then you can start going faster and harder if it's not coming out. But basically, give it a couple of hits and you'll see that the slide comes out. That has been my favorite method to do this, to remove these slides. And as you can see, this is how that should look. You have your slide here. It doesn't have the needle because we removed the needle prior to removing the slide, the stuck slide. This one actually has, I'll show you here. This one actually has remains of how it was actually gunked up there a little bit. So there you go. So that's how you remove the stuck slide. Of course, the slide is gonna have a whole bunch more gunk here and you're gonna have to clean that out. You're gonna have to go back into your bore and make sure you clean that gunk out before you put your slide back in. Otherwise, you'll have issues with your carburetor down the road. All right, so now we just simply remove the slide hammer. We put it back into our kit here, which honestly, it's a great kit to have for this type of work. Remove the adapter, put that back, and then all we have to do is, again, go back in here. Now we have the slide outside of the carbs. All we have to do is go back in here and reach those same bolts that we removed earlier to get this mechanism out, this one right here. So now we remove these bolts. Again, this is the reason why you don't want to have them super tight. You want to have them tight on there because you don't want them to be loose to where when you hit the slide hammer out, that they'll strip or anything like that. So you want to have good compression downwards on them, but you also don't want them so tight that you're going to have a hard time removing them. All right, so there's the second one. And all you have to do, this since I'm using an original little mechanism, one of these right here, welded to this piece, I have to turn halfways and then remove. But if you're doing it with a small piece of metal that you built yourself that has the two holes exactly like this one, then really you don't need to worry about that because you're gonna be able to put it in whichever way you want. Again, this is a very simple way of removing stuck slides, and I've done it a bunch of times with great success using this method. Again, don't be tempted to put in a flathead screwdriver in there. You can heat up the bores and try to kind of, expand the area there or the gap between the slide and the carb. You can do that as well. But to be honest, this method seems to be the one that hurts the carburetor the least amount. And really, if you're careful removing these screws, which, depending on the condition of the carbs, these screws here, are really the only ones that can hold you back from doing this. If those are stripped, or if you're having a hard time removing them, or if you don't use JIS screwdrivers, then that's the only thing that can hold you back. Otherwise, if you have this, I paid about $30 for this slide hammer, the 2-pound slide hammer, and I welded this little piece together myself. I have a welder at home. Again, if you don't have a welder, you can definitely take this to somebody that can maybe even make you this piece. I think it's well worth it because, as you all know out there, buying an aftermarket set of carbs for a Honda CB550 can be super expensive. Even a used set of carbs for a Honda CB550 or 500 can run you anywhere from $150 to $400, even $500 for the super clean and repaired ones. So yeah, I think spending $30 on a set of like a 2-pound slide hammer and a couple of, you know, making another couple little tools like what I made here is well worth your investment there. So that is it for today's video. I hope some of you out there learned something about how you can go ahead and remove stuck slides. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Please like the video, help me share this video, and yeah, I hope you all enjoyed our little segment on how to remove stuck slides from inside of your Honda CB550 or 500 Carbs. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you all so much for watching.